So I wanted to extend my gratitude for attending the AWEA 2015 market report. Pretty exciting day because we're going to announce some figures. I hope you can grab a copy. It's right on the table. It'll give you a sense of what wind is going to be. I'll be the incoming chair of AWEA for this next year. I've been on for the last few years, but we've got a great group of Colorado wind industry partners here today that we're going to speak quickly, representing utilities, developers, educators, and of course manufacturers. For us, it's a pretty good time for the wind industry. You can see the factory is just a little bit busy. I don't know if these guys have had some time off in a while, so I kind of like that. The parking lots are full, and for us, it's a pretty beautiful backdrop to see these nacelles and blades going to be shipped across the rest of the United States. But today, this morning, I want to get to sit down for a minute. I guess that's one of your trains, guys. He's being recognized. But I really wanted to extend a special note of thanks for the governor, Hickenlooper, for joining us. He's been committed for wind for quite some time, and it's really, the economic benefits for Colorado. It's not only economic, but it's environmental, and that's, I think, the thing that we forget about a little bit. Under the governor's leadership, Colorado has had a favorable renewable energy policy, more than $5.5 billion of wind project investment, and that's really no small task. They rank state 10th in the United States for wind installation, but I'm proud to say that Vestas turbines account for over a third of the new capacity this year. That's up pretty significantly. And Colorado's leadership in expanding wind power has enabled the state to have 7,000 jobs. Jobs are an important component of that. We have 4,000 here in Colorado alone. And the important thing is, the fact of the matter is we're cutting electricity costs. That's the sort of everyone thinks that renewables are expensive. Well, I'm here to tell you that wind is actually cheap and it's on sale. The governor's support for the enterprise zone has also been important for us. The state tax credits has resulted in more wind project investment in Colorado. You're going to hear from Excel and others. But Colorado has also protected and expanded the RPS to 30%, which is important for the citizens. But under the governor's leadership, wind was for the second year in the United States, for the second year in a row, we're the #1 source of installed generation. That's pretty important. You think about wind being the largest source of generation. It added nearly 8,600 megawatts of installed capacity in the United States. That's enough to power 17.5 million homes. That's a fair amount of American homes. That's nearly double the 2014, and I'd say we're just getting started. I'm proud to say that over 1,400 of those turbines came from Vestas here in Colorado, and we're only going to get larger in the days to come. With that, let me really introduce Governor Hickenlooper. I don't know if you know, I guess you do. He's a former geologist, and he's an entrepreneur. He champions innovation, collaboration, and efficiency. Since taking office in 2011, the governor's team has endeavored to make Colorado the most pro-business state with the highest environmental and ethical standards. Please help me in welcoming the Governor Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Chris. And as the incoming chair, I appreciate you using your leverage to get this announcement here, the release of the report. Tom Barron, thank you for all your work. I didn't know AWEA until 2008 when I was the mayor of Denver. We hosted the Democrat convention. AWEA, and this was completely out of my purview, ended up renting my old brew pub and had a big event there. And I'm still buddies with the guys, Joe King and Isaac Slade, who are on the fray. So we managed to get them to show up at the end of that party, which made for all the social media and created a bond that cannot be broken. Also, I want to give a recognition to Governor Bill Ritter, who he and his team worked very hard to make sure that Vestas brought, when they were looking where to go in North America for their headquarters and the majority of their manufacturing capacity, he made sure that he made the argument that Colorado was the only place that would really fit for them. It was in the center of the country. It was, an idyllic location in terms of backdrops. It also had a workforce that was ready and willing, and he really created a transaction that we're seeing the benefits of even today as wind energy continues to grow. A lot of discussions on power in Colorado these days, just like across the country, in the President's Clean Power Plan. We continue to point out that we in Colorado are determined to get to more renewable energy, to cleaner energy, regardless of whatever criteria the federal government might say. This is a state issue for us. We view it as one of our highest priorities, just from a, I mean, and at this point, what Chris was saying about the cost of wind is very clear that it's coming down in price, just as for a while there, natural gas was a major replacement source for older coal plants that were being phased out. I think wind is going to take an increasingly large share of that as well. We need, Bill Gates said most clearly, I think it was about a year ago, what we really are looking for in this, at this time, at this point in history, is a miracle. We want to have an energy system that's as reliable as the one we have, that is as inexpensive as the one that we have, but that is completely clean. And I think when we're standing here in front of Vestas, we see what that's going to look like and how we're going to get there. The 2015 annual AWEA report demonstrates remarkable growth, as Chris said. The number one source of new electric generating capacity in 2015 says up 41%, over $14.7 billion invested in 2015. Wind jobs were up 20%, the biggest increase ever. I guess that of the new electric, that 41% wasn't growth, it was the percentage of the new electric generating capacity in 2015. American Wind Power now supports 88,000 jobs, and in many cases those are jobs in parts of the country where there aren't a lot of jobs, there are more rural locations. The industry is projected to employ somewhere in the vicinity of 380,000 people by 2030, and ultimately should be supplying at that time roughly 20% of the electricity in the United States. We look at this as also a way to keep money in consumers' pockets. Consumers in the 10 states with the most renewable energy pay less on their electricity bills than consumers in the 10 states with the least renewable energy. I think on that criteria, wind is expected to save Colorado $231 million over 20 years. That includes a variety of considerations, avoiding impacts to the environment, saving on public health costs. You go down that long list. Public health benefits continue to add up rapidly. $7.3 billion in savings on health costs can be attributed to wind energy cutting pollution in 2015. That is a prodigious number. Wind energy reduced America's CO2 emissions by more than 6% last year. That's rough justice 28 million automobiles, taking them off the road. As I mentioned, rural communities are major benefactors of this. The $222 million a year that goes to rural landowners, $156 million, that's roughly 75%, is paid to counties with below average incomes. There's also 226 gallons of water savings every year for every single American. That's per person, which frees up water supplies for raising crops and raising livestock and growing crops. So obviously, it's no surprise that we in Colorado embrace the innovation and the potential that wind energy brings. Hopefully, Colorado will be the tip of the spear of renewable energy development, allowing both abundant wind and abundant solar resources that we have. We were the first voter-led renewable energy statute in the country. We have robust demand-side management programming, truly business-friendly environment, a large capacity of intellectual capital, as we have now. I think we're up to 24 federally funded U.S. laboratories. Our leadership in expanding wind power, I think, has moved the state forward, not just in terms of all the jobs that were created, protecting clean air, but as I said, really in terms of reducing the costs. I'll finish with a couple more key stats, as if you haven't had enough stats anyway. But wind energy provided has comprised 80% of Colorado's renewable energy contributions for 8 of the last 10 years. So for 8 of the 10 last years, 80% or more of the additional energy renewable capacity came from wind. So up to 7,000 jobs in that. By the end of 2015, we were in the top 5 states for uh, employment for wind energy. We have 23 different factories in Colorado. That puts us again in the top 10 nationally. And we have 2 of the nation's top training programs for wind energy employees. We provided over 14% of our electricity in 2015. Have invested over $5.5 billion so far. And as I touched on before, a significant percentage of these wind farms are in rural parts of the state. Wind pays $10 million a year to farmers and ranchers. That's a big deal in those states. And in many of those counties, especially when you get into drought years or years like this where we've had lower commodity prices because of the strength of the dollar, the benefit that those revenues provide, not just the farmers, but to the counties for basic infrastructure within those rural communities is crucial. Collaboration's, I think, been the secret, the not so secret ingredient of our success with wind. We've had a partnership between the private sector and the public sector. Obviously, Vestas is production, as Chris said, is up 70% in Colorado in 2015 to over 3,000 megawatts of turbines. 20% of the global workforce for Vestas is in Colorado, nearly 3,700 people. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Xcel. For more than a decade, Xcel has been ranked the nation's #1 utility wind energy provider by AWEA. Wind energy in Colorado produced 54% of their customers' power for the entire day, for one entire day in October of 2015. They're projected to exceed the state's 30% renewable energy standard by 2020. Again, you couldn't ask for a better partner in terms of if you're trying to find ways to have cleaner air, but at the same time maintain flat or hopefully even lower consumer rates. They're doing that. So in Colorado, that means reduce carbon emissions by 25% from 2005. Hopefully that number will get up to 37% by 2020. RES Americas, a leader in the development, engineering, construction of wind and solar energy storage programs, also a big part here, as is Ecotech Institute, which is the first and really, I think, only college entirely focused on preparing graduates for careers in the fields of renewable energy, sustainability, and energy efficiency, making sure that we continue to attract the best and the brightest to our state. It allows us to maintain that sense of being intensely competitive in terms of innovation, how positive changes are done. So obviously there's a lot that's happened, but we've got to keep our eye on the ball in the future and make sure that the momentum that's been achieved doesn't slow down. We want to continue to provide support and stimulus for additional research and development, and make sure that at the regulatory level we are protecting the environment, looking after the health of our consumers, and making sure that their household budgets are protected at the same time. As we do that, the private sector's got to continue to lead in that, in the creation, but also the deployment of new technology. And I think our goal and hope is that as this new ideas and innovations are created in Colorado, they spread across the country, continue to maintain the momentum we've seen across the entire country of implementing more and better renewable energy. So thank you to AWEA for doing this here. I know that there are a lot of choices for where you can have a release. As the governor, I get to speak on behalf of the entire state of Colorado. But on behalf of that state, I want to thank you for all your work, and especially for bringing this announcement here. And to Vestas, keep up the good work. Thank you. You guys want to? I gotta have to race out of here, so I can't do the questions afterwards. You want to throw a couple questions at me, or you don't have to? Yeah. Fine. Okay. There being no questions.
Thank you, Governor Hickenlooper, for attending and speaking at our event today and for the fantastic leadership in Colorado on renewable energy. I will note, as I'm prepared here to make a few remarks. It's hard to follow the governor, especially when he nails all of our best talking points, which was fantastic. To the governor's staff, great job. And to the governor. My name's Tom Darren. Again, I'm the Senior Director for Western State Policy for AWEA. And again, it's an honor to have our annual market report rolled out in Colorado. And thank you to Vestas. I want to note before I start that we've got some really good news recently and a resurgence of state and federal policies that are really driving these kind of numbers the governor just spoke about. Just yesterday, the state legislature in Maryland handed the governor a bill to move the state's renewable standard to 25%. We've had successes recently in California last year to move that standard to 50% renewable electricity. In Oregon, following on the heels of that this year on the state policy front, moving to 50%. And the state of New York is strongly considering a bold move to 50% this year as well. That combined with the passage of the 5-year production tax credit at the federal level, we're going to see these policies and others and our low costs continue to drive demand and continue to have these banner years like we had in 2015. I want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Cottrell Props. She's in the audience here and attending. She's the executive director of one of our key regional partners for AWEA that really covers the state policy ground in Colorado and 5 other states in the region. So if you have a chance to mingle and meet with Sarah after the event, she's doing a fantastic job in Colorado and other states, again, helping us achieve these results. I don't want to repeat a lot of the things that the governor said, and I want to move as MC, and that's my job to move this along. I just want to mention before I introduce Chris Brown that wind power is really driving the country forward. We have rapid growth, we're cutting costs, we're saving consumers money and improving air quality at the same time, while at the same time keeping the lights on and having a very reliable and robust grid. On the pace front, you already heard from Chris and from the governor about how being #1 in capacity last year, but let me give you, across the U.S., but let me give you these stats. It took the U.S. wind industry 28 years to install our first 35,000 megawatts of wind across the country. Okay? We doubled that to 70,000 or more megawatts in the last 7 years. In a similar fashion, it took us about 28 years for us to reach 1% of the electricity supply in the U.S. At about 2008. That was the first year we were at 1%. In the last 7 years, we've quintupled that to where we are now about 5% of the electricity supply in the United States. The growth of this industry is fantastic, and you'll be hearing more about our 2015 successes. On costs, our costs have come down by more than 2/3 in the last 6 years. Our record low prices are saving consumers money. You heard the governor talk about the hundreds of millions here in Colorado alone. Think of wind power with no fuel costs, and for that matter, solar and other renewables, is the energy version of your 30-year fixed mortgage. It's providing consumers, it's providing industrial, customers long-term stability over 20, 25 years where they have some certainty over what their rates are going to be. And that's critically important. It's much like, again, the families looking at their 3- and 5-year ARMs and saying, I'm not sure where interest rates are going. I want to lock in wind's benefits for 20, 25 years, and we're that version in the energy sector. And lastly, before I turn to Chris, on the emissions front, we're improving air quality. Annually in 2015, we reduced carbon by 132 million metric tons, representing about 6% of the entire emissions in the electricity sector nationwide. Here in Colorado, that figure is about 7.6 million metric tons that we took out of emissions last year on an annual basis here in Colorado. So as I turn to Chris Brown, it's a great honor again to be here at Vestas today. Chris is the president of Vestas North America. As he mentioned, we're very proud to have him as our incoming board chair on the board of directors for the American Wind Energy Association. Vestas is, of course, a world leader in turbine manufacturing with 4 fantastic facilities here in Colorado alone. So it's an honor to bring Chris Brown back up to the podium. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Again, let's get actually to the report. 8,600 megawatts installed in 2015. Again, 17.5 million American homes. It doubles the installed capacity. More importantly, it's about $14.7 billion of revenue across for the investment side. Just to put it in context, that's more than the NFL and the MLB. So I know we like our sports here in Colorado, but That's a fair amount of money. New power, also new clean power, grew 3,500 times the coal. Now that doesn't take a lot because coal's not doing too well. But if you think about it, Vestas is the only pure play wind manufacturer. We've grown in the last 3 years over 1,000%. So that's pretty good growth. We do about 15,000 turbines are deployed over the past 3 years. But globally, one thing that you may not know about us, we have 75 gigawatts. That's 75,000 megawatts of wind globally in 75 countries. That's the same as the entire wind generating capacity in the United States. Again, we're a fairly large player globally. Here is a very strong market for us. In 2015, we shipped 30% increase globally, 3,300 turbines. In the United States, we had a 70% increase, so that's a pretty good number. But again, it's about employment as well, right? We've heard 15,000 jobs just this year, up 20% nationally. I know our guys at the factories can tell you it's been challenging finding qualified employees here. That's been a big challenge, but I think we're there, and we're going to be there for quite some time with the extension of the production tax credit. You'll see these factories doing really very well. Of those, what's important, and I think the guys from Ecotech are going to talk about that, about 48,500 turbines require personnel to operate. In the United States, that was the fastest growing job growth with 108% between now and 2024. That surpasses almost every single other job classification. So I think Ecotech's going to have a great go for it. About a quarter of those jobs, about 21,000, are well-paying manufacturing jobs. So when you think about the manufacturing side, that's 500 factories across 43 states. 23 of those factories, like the governor said, are here in Colorado. And for us, it's all of our factories are here. So I'm proud to say that Colorado is the home to all of the manufacturing capacity. Again, I think what's important to remember is American wind power is also leading kind of the American renaissance on manufacturing. We're bringing domestic manufacturing jobs back home, not abroad. So these jobs are well-paying jobs, and it's a diverse and really a very good cross-sense of people that are across the United States. Also, one of the things that nobody really mentioned about Colorado, but clean tech is booming. Right here in Colorado, it's the fourth largest in the country. It is also it's got 25,000 jobs, 2,000 companies across the supply chain. So it doesn't people don't get lost on the mountains and the activities here. They want to be here, so it's important. And also innovation. One thing Tom talked about, the cost of wind energy has dropped. We used to have some objections in the energy field, but again, 66% drop between 2009 and 2015 on the cost of energy generated from wind. And that's because the rotors, the blades, they're larger, and we're getting more productivity across the fleets. Like Tom said, it's 28 years for the industry to install the first 35 gigawatts. It'll be only 6 to install the next 7. So again, it's doubling where we're going to go. It's exponential growth, but it's really cost. If you think, like you said, the cost is coming down, faster than most industry pundits had projected. And I think that's, with the production tax credit expiring, that's going to even be accelerated. Again, just to give you a sense of, in the market report, 52% of the megawatts contracted through PPAs, or 2,000 megawatts, were signed by non-utility purchasers. Sorry, not utility. So that's going to be pretty competitive. The Googles, the IKEAs, the Amazons, they're all out there. So the percentage more than doubled to 23% of megawatts contracted through 2014, and outpaces by 5% through 13. So again, non-utility purchasers are going to be a big factor. In total, 4,500 megawatts of wind have been signed by the likes of Procter & Gamble, General Motors, Dow Chemicals, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, and the governments as well. So the Department of Defense has also recognized this threat as a multiplier. So again, I think that wind is becoming recognized as an economic choice these days. So again, it's a business case. It's driven by consumer demand. Consumers are really no longer accepting the trade-off between economic and environmental. It's not an either or, it's an and question. So stewardship is important. For us, we think the markets have spoken, and clearly the smart money is investing in wind energy. For consumers, the return is just as promising. DOE says that we'll save almost $150 billion by 2050 by investing in wind. So that's really, I think, the story. For us, it's all about economic sense and actually the environmental sense. And for us, it's companies like Vestas. We continue to scale production. Our employees are happy, and we know, not only know, I think our guys in front of us will tell you that if you walk the factory floors, we will develop this market, and we'll be a leader in the energy movement. So again, thank you for the state of Colorado in in being, I guess, our host not only today, but our success. And I'll turn it back over to Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Great. Thank you, Chris. I mentioned as I gave down some of the rundown of the stats earlier about reliability, and I want to hit a couple points before introducing David Eves. Wind power supplies Colorado with 14% of its electricity. So think back, I said 5% nationally. That's a national. It's 14% here in Colorado. You can triple that on peak days. In fact, wind in Excel has hit much higher than that in sustained periods of time. It's sometimes 50% of the wind on its system for 24 hours straight. I think that was last October. And if you think about that, how modern forecasting and what Excel is doing on the leadership front can really reliably integrate that wind. 12 states, in addition to Colorado, have 10% of their electricity supplied by wind. Iowa leads the country with 31%. And with that as sort of a backdrop, it's really an honor to have President David Eves of the Public Service Company of Colorado here today. As several recognized, the governor as well. Excel is the #1 utility for wind on its system in the United States. It's been that way for 10 years. And Excel really exemplifies all the things we're talking about here today. It's procuring wind and other renewables ahead of the RPS. It's driving economic investment. It's saving consumers money. Excel is a national leader, partnering with NREL and others on the reliable integration of wind on its system. Excel continues that leadership. It recently announced our energy plan in the state. It includes a key pillar that we're really proud of adding 1,000 megawatts of new utility-scale renewables in the next couple of years, and over half of that, maybe 600 megawatts of that, will be new wind power here in Colorado. So with that in mind, it is a great honor to introduce David Eves of PSCo and Excel.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Chris. We appreciate being able to be a part of this. So I'm going to do a quiz on all the stats that you've heard today. No, not really. I'd like to take just 1 minute and look back and reflect on where we've come, and then look forward for just a moment if I can. We're really proud to be the for the 12th year in a row, the #1 wind energy utility in the country. We have over 6,500 megawatts. 40% of that is right here in Colorado, and we're going to continue to grow. Now, as I reflect, 15 years ago, I was leading the generation resource planning function for our company, and I can remember the first 120 megawatt wind farm in southeast Colorado that we looked at, and struggling with how we were going to deal with the integration and incorporating that into the operation of our system. That was 120 megawatts. Today we have 2,700 megawatts of wind generation operating here in Colorado in a standalone balancing area. I'm really proud of the work that we've done partnering with NREL, with NCAR, with the other labs, developing state-of-the-art forecasting, and we've modified the rest of our power system to be more flexible to accommodate and work with intermittent renewables. So we predict them better and build the rest of the system to complement it. It's let us accomplish what we have, and other energy providers in the country are doing the same thing. So it's very exciting. So looking forward, I know this is a little bit premature, but I just can't resist the opportunity. In the next few weeks, we'll be announcing Colorado's largest wind project that we plan. We're going to propose it to the Colorado Public Utilities Commission. It will be a 600 megawatt project in eastern Colorado, built with 100% Vestas turbines, manufactured right here. Manufactured right here and in Windsor and in Pueblo, Colorado. This is a project that will create hundreds of millions of dollars of savings for Colorado energy customers. It will reduce our emissions by another 3%. You heard the governor pushing earlier for even further reductions and more increases in renewable energy. So it's going to do all those things. It's going to save money. It will infuse money in landholder payments and construction jobs. It's going to be a great benefit. So we're very excited about it. A lot more details to come when we get the final things worked out in early May. But I think it's going to be fantastic. And you notice that of the 1,000 megawatts of new renewable energy that will be announced in our resource plan in May, that we did give the edge by 600 versus 400 to win. So it just seems appropriate for this today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. I next want to introduce Jamie Steve, who is the Vice President for Government Relations for Renewable Energy at one of our top developers in the country that does not only wind but solar transmission and storage development, Res Americas, headquartered here in Broomfield, Colorado. Jamie, as you come up, I just want to reflect and maybe pose a question to you. We've heard quite a few times that we're the #1 capacity resource added last year. There you are. And I want you to maybe comment on what's driving that and what are the things we need to keep that going so that when we have the 2016 and 2017 version of this day, how we have the same kind of numbers racked up. Everyone, welcome Jamie Steve from Res.
Thanks, Tom. Res is located just down the road from here in Broomfield, and I'm very honored actually to represent 300 employees at Res, and we're trying to catch up. Chris, investors here, but 300 employees.
Just buy more.
Exactly. We're working on that. But 300 employees is pretty good. It shows the growth of this industry. And Res is a company that does wind, a lot of wind. We've done actually 10 gigawatts of renewable energy development worldwide. But right here in Colorado, we've developed a 250 megawatt project out near Lyman. And it's all about being local, and it's all about producing jobs, really. And what we need to keep doing to create more jobs and to create more clean renewable energy is really to build up and get a robust 21st century power grid out there. I think everyone has seen stories about how our power grid could potentially be under attack. We need to put a lot of investment into both protecting the grid and building up the power grid so that people can get cheaper, reliable, cleaner power, and that's what we need to do to keep going.
Great, thank you, Jamie. The next talk about a key component. Chris mentioned manufacturing. We've got a lot of construction jobs as part of that 88,000 figure. I want to mention the wind turbine technician is the #1 growing job by the U.S. Department of Labor in the United States right now. And it's really no surprise. We have approximately 50,000 turbines in the U.S. that make up about that 75,000 megawatts of capacity. And each modern wind turbine has about 8,000 component parts. Therefore, we need wind technicians to keep these machines running efficiently and make routine repairs throughout their 20 to 25 year life. Already, we have almost 9,000 wind turbine technicians in the country. Colorado's home to 2 of the top 2-year training technician schools for those jobs. And Ecotech, located here in Aurora, Colorado, has a very nationally recognized wind and solar training program. I've been to Ecotech several times in the last couple of years, and I meet the students. They're veterans. Ecotech is hiring our veterans coming back after service. Ecotech is attracting students from across the country to move to Denver to take advantage of this great, growing, and well-paying set of jobs that are out there. And I'll just add this, that in recent years it's so high that I think, and Austin will speak to this, that sometimes they're reaching 90% placement rate. I think the last graduating class was 100% by the day of graduation. So it's a great honor to have Austin Van Slyke here, the program director for Ecotech, based in Aurora, Colorado. And here you go. And please welcome Austin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Austin Van Slyke. I'm the program director for the wind program at Ecotech. We have 8 degree programs at Ecotech. And one of the cool things that we can say is they're all in renewable energy. We're a college that is dedicated to sustainability and renewable energy classes. All 8 of our programs are in this field. And so I run the wind program, which we teach people how to fix wind turbines. And I want to get them to the level of a commissioning technician. That's one of the higher technical, challenging jobs that are out there. And when I see these nacelles sitting out here, yeah, I see those 8,000 moving parts that are wearing out and need maintenance. But I also see jobs. It takes 3 people on a team of 3. It takes them 2 full days just to do the scheduled maintenance on one wind turbine. We have close to 100,000 wind turbines in the United States. That's going to account for a lot of jobs. And this is going to be a pretty growing, steady job. This is not like construction where it's going to have ups and downs. The maintenance jobs are the ones that are going to stick around for the long run. These wind farms are designed for 20 years, and they're not going to live that long if they don't have well-trained technicians doing high-quality repairs. This is imperative. These machines need to produce cheap electricity, and in order for that to be successful, these machines are going to have to live as long as they're designed to live. RES does a great job designing, picking the systems. They actually get to pick the upgrades that are in the machines. I think that would be an awesome job. Is just pimp my wind turbine. Vestas, the biggest wind turbine manufacturer in the world. He makes some of the best machines in the world, and it's well known. They live the longest. I worked for Vestas for several years as a traveling wind technician myself, climbing up to 8 wind turbines a day. And so I've got that experience, and I'm telling you, these are great jobs. These are really great jobs. They're in nice towns in America, small towns, and they're really high pay. If you look at the pay and compare it to the cost of living, right? The cost of living where these wind farms are really low, so these guys are really well off in these environments. Being a wind turbine technician is a really exciting job. Every day you're doing something different. You've got fiber optics, you've got hydraulics, you've got high-speed internet in every wind turbine. These are the biggest robots in the world. And there's hundreds of thousands of them in the United States, automated power plants. And I brought 2 students here with me tonight. They're getting ready to graduate the wind program this summer. I've got about 15 graduates coming up in a couple of weeks, and they're all graduating the wind program, and they're excited to get out there and climb those 300-foot ladders and stay up there for 10 hours a day. So you guys are looking forward to that, huh?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So that concludes the formal part of our press event in terms of our lineup of speakers, but we definitely want to open up to questions and answers. The 2 Ecotech grads are welcome to come up at this point. And I want to make sure I've got it right for Vestas. We've got all 4 plant managers here in attendance, and so you're either welcome up here, or we can, if there's a specific question from the press about towers, blades, nacelles, and the different factories here and across Colorado, we can direct those questions upon them. So if the wind turbine techs want to come up and join Austin. All right, and then we'll be up here. We can kind of go with the question, and whoever takes the mic.
All right, what's your question?
The question was, can you kind of give us a ballpark range of what salaries are calculated in good pay?
Well, all my graduates are getting placed as wind technicians. Some of them traveling, but not very many of them. Most of them have to relocate to a wind farm. And starting pay is about $25 an hour. And so these types of jobs, as you may guess, require some overtime. So these types of jobs are pretty high paying. You work it out, and then the traveling technicians make even more. And that's as a general wind technician. There's a lot of job titles out there that basically do the same thing. You can be a blade repair technician, a gearbox maintenance technician, special projects, construction, commissioning, and schedule maintenance. Yeah.
I actually had a question for Mr. Eves and Mr. Brown. Didn't see that one coming, did you?
No.
No. All right, Mr. Eves and Mr. Brown, we just had announced a 600 megawatt wind farm. You stated it's Colorado's largest. Mr. Eves, why? Why now? How much? Mr. Brown, what does this mean to the company here in Colorado?
So why now? With the extension of the production tax credit by Congress at the end of the year, we've got a short window of opportunity to start construction this year complete the project and have it online and operating in 2018. We get the full production tax credit, and it creates a very economic project in terms of providing energy to our customers. We think it will be the lowest cost wind generation facility in Colorado on a levelized cost of energy basis.
Dollar figures? How much?
I said the formal announcement would come out in a couple of weeks.
Greedy. You started this.
No, so for us, it's great news. I mean, I think that the factory guys will be happy. One of the things that's important to us is that everybody here knows that we produce, but we're getting an opportunity to build right in our neighborhood. So that's critical for us. If you think about 600 megawatts, you should be thinking about it's about 3 months for the 4,000 folks that are here in Colorado. So that's a hell of a chunk of business for us. So again, we appreciate the kind of honored to be able to do business with Excel. We've obviously done business with Res around the country, which has also been an honor. But it's nice to build for the state that you're in. So for us, like I said, it's a great opportunity. And anybody can ask the factory guys. I think the employees will be totally psyched with us winning this sale.
This question is probably for Tom. Tom, you mentioned the cost of wind generated electricity is coming down. What is it now, and what's the trend line been?
I want to give an answer to that question, but I also want to bring up John Hensley from our Research and Statistics Department, who really helped compile the report. As I said, at a higher level, the costs have come down nationally about 66% over the last 5 or 6 years. In many regions, and this is public information, we're seeing wind deals with the production tax credit included in the low 20s per mega, $22 to $25 per megawatt hour. And again, I stress that that's regionally with some of our highest capacity factor wind in the country. And that's some of the things that we have here in Colorado that lead Excel and David in combining with Vestas for these types of deals, because at that wholesale rate, you're able to really lock in really low cost wind over that 20 to 25 year time horizon. I want to give John a shot at that answer because there are some nuances about that regionally and some other things you can file for the report. Thanks, John.
And Tom, that's the cost of construction?
That's an all-in produced levelized cost of energy price of what those plants will produce. All right, so cost from a different perspective. Again, by region, I think per megawatt, all-in construction, purchase of the turbines and everything else, laying the concrete, have come down from somewhere in the $2 million range per megawatt down to, in some regions, closer to 1.5 million, 1.6 million in the last years. But I really want to let John have a shot at that.
Thanks, Tom. So there are typically two reports that we tend to point to for both cost and price of wind energy. The first is the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. They collect information on PPA prices across projects in various regions installed in any given year. And that 66% drop that we've seen in the prices was based on that data from LBNL. As Tom mentioned, in 2014, which is kind of the last year in which a lot of this data is available, the average PPA was somewhere in the $20 to $22 per megawatt hour range. And as Tom mentioned, that's a levelized cost of energy, sort of all in, including all the equipment, operations and maintenance, production tax credit included as well. The other great resource to point to is a Wall Street firm called Lazard. They have a similar approach that looks at levelized cost of energy across different technologies, so comparing wind not only to other renewable resources, but also to natural gas combined cycle, coal generation, etc. And we can point you in the direction of that report, but we see similar falls in the cost of wind in that report as well.
I should have been more clear. My question is to the consumer. What is the current cost of electric power, wind generated electricity to the consumer, and what's the trend line?
So if you think if you translate that, that's 2.2 cents a kilowatt hour to the consumer. Now the consumer has got a lot of other things to consider. They got transmission, they have distribution costs. So it's not as easy to say boom, it's right there, because you got to get to the consumer's home. So when you think about directly, it's like, hey, the utilities are getting a pretty good deal because the PTC is incenting about half of that, which is again $23. So you're thinking the utilities don't pay that. The consumers are only paying that 2.2, 2.3 cents a kilowatt hour.
about what do we need to do in the future in dealt with transmission lines.
Yeah.
Where are we on that?
So as a country, I mean, if you look at, one of the focuses for this year, for the coming year, for me as the chairman, will be making sure that we get, transmission installed. One of the large companies, Clean Line, has just gotten a record decision for a project called the Plains and Eastern, which is an environmental approvals. But also companies like SunZia on the transmission side. If you don't have, I give the analogy, if you don't have highways, you can't drive cars. It's that easy. So for us, what you really need to be thinking about is how do you get transmission installed to be able to bring this low-cost energy source to where the demand is. The large cities across, whether it's Denver, New York, Philadelphia, Washington on the East Coast, or LA and San Fran on the West Coast. But you got to get this high-capacity wind factors in states like Wyoming, New Mexico, in Oklahoma, and in other regions too. Those lower-cost areas, and that's where transmission comes in. And transmission, is, to be frank, has been slow to get approval. So we really have to think as a country, how do we accelerate that development and do it at a pace which allows us to take advantage of this pretty good technology.
Following that question, what's Vestas been able to learn from the German experience in their transmission conundrum there?
Yeah, so I think what you're referring to is historically when you start to think about the electricity generation, it's like, well, how do you balance centralized generating stations with like distributed generation? And that one's a debate that we're going to continue to have. I'd say it's an and for renewable energy. You need low-cost wind energy that is coming from some of the rural areas. But even if you're putting in solar, you're going to need to have transmission coming in. So what's important to remember is whether it's energy storage or solar or wind, you have to get the wind from those areas that have the capacity to those areas in the cities which require the demand. I mean, integration, if we go to countries where we're from, Denmark, what you'll see is 60s and 70% in terms of wind integration on the grid. So the whole issue about whether wind integration is important, but I think you've seen in complex economies throughout the world, especially in Europe, that we've been able to deal with the intermittency of wind throughout the grid.
We're at Eastern Colorado. Is this wind farm projected to go?
So we're still working with landowners on the development. That will be part of what we can announce in May.
Is there a county?
It's in several counties.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Big site.
Any other additional questions? Well, with that, I think we conclude the AWEA rollout of our 2015 annual marketing report. Definitely, again, thank Vestas for hosting. And I've just been told that there's a webinar that's following right after this event, and I don't with me on that, but we can get those to folks that are interested. Again, thank you, Chris and Vestas, for hosting. Thank you to all of our speakers for lending their time and their expertise today, and thank you all for attending. Appreciate it.